Remember the MT-07? Of course you do. It's that cheap, fun Yamaha that looks like it came from a manga comic and was launched recently enough to still feel fresh. Remember the SV650? Of course you do. It's that Suzuki that's been around literally since the last century, making it a little bit more difficult to get excited about. That is exactly what Suzuki will be hoping you're not thinking. There's a new SV650 for 2016, but it's actually an updated SFV650 Gladius, itself a 7-year-old model. So, is it enough to take on the MT-07? Well, what's clear immediately in our back-to-back test is that the SV doesn't feel like an older model. The two bikes make about the same power, 74.8 horsepower from the MT and 75 from the SV, and they've both got the healthy mid-range of a twin. Both have a hooligan feel as you accelerate away from some traffic lights. It's when you brake for the next set that the first big difference becomes clear. Aside from the addition of ABS, the SV's brakes look the same as they did 10 years ago. And they are. While the MT-07 has 4-pot modern calipers on its front discs, the SV still has twin-pot sliding calipers. Jumping from one bike to another, the difference is unmistakable. Expecting MT levels of bite from the SV lever has you heading for the back of the bike in front. The SV's brakes will stop you quickly, they just need you to pull the lever harder, which makes them feel a bit more wooden than the MT's. But the SV doesn't lack as much for brakes as the MT does for suspension. It's too soft and bouncy. The new SV650 has a basic non-adjustable 41mm fork and shock, but it works very well for a £5,500 bike, allowing you to ride quite aggressively and chuck it from side to side without it pitching backward and forward as much as the MT does. The MT-07's a lightweight, agile and really good fun bike with an attitude in its styling that is very much lacking in the SV. It's got a stronger feeling mid-range and a slightly higher peak torque at 50 pounds-foot compared to 47. But find some bends and you'll find the SV can be pushed harder and with more confidence because its superior suspension makes it more stable and predictable, and it's just as agile. You don't even need bends actually. Any road with a beginning and an end will highlight the MT-07's tendency to pitch more. You might not notice under acceleration because you'll be distracted by the bike's eagerness to wheelie in first, but you'll notice when you get on the brakes. Because the forks dive so readily, too much load is placed on the MT's front tyre when it hits minor bumps in the road, an effect that is experienced as a pulse through the brake lever as the ABS activates. If you just rode the Yamaha, I'm absolutely sure you could live with it and be happy and love it. But riding the SV highlights how much it could be better with decent suspension. Both are excellent town bikes. The upright riding positions make for good weaving between queues of traffic, but the SV feels a bit gawkier than the MT. The bars are a bit too high, so it's like Suzuki wants to remind you you're on a budget commuter. It feels too ordinary, like a GS500. I don't mean to attack the GS500, I'm sure I'd love one at the right price, but 5,499 isn't it. The MT-07's bars are high too, but you sit a bit closer to them, so it feels a bit more aggressive and supermoto-like. Suddenly it's not just about going to work, it's about having fun too. And just look at it, no one is going to mistake an MT-07 for a GS500. The SV's seat is hard, thin and angled downwards toward the tank, and it gets uncomfortable after about an hour. The MT's seat is wider and flatter, and I was happy to spend longer on it. Both bikes have a fuel gauge, gear indicator and average fuel consumption meters. The SV tells you your range till empty, while the MT-07 has a fuel reserve trip meter. Just looking at those clocks highlights a really big difference between the two bikes. One is cooler than the other. One is breaking the rules with the clocks mounted on top of the bars. One is keeping them in the traditional place, forward of the handlebar, worried that it's going to get into trouble if it puts them anywhere else. I don't need to tell you which one is which. I'm going to break from Visordown tradition here by not calling a clear winner of this back-to-back test. It's not that simple, because if I was buying one with my own money, it would be the MT-07 at 5,749, a little bit more expensive with ABS, for its more aggressive styling, youthful attitude and the joy of ownership that will bring. It's as fun and useful as the SV in most settings, more in some, and I dare say it's going to hold its value better. But if you showed me an amazing road and offered me a go on either machine for half an hour, I'd take the SV, because in that setting, it's the better tool for the job.